Okay, so here are the functions of the membrane. Okay, one is passive osmosis and diffusion. Okay, so uh, some substances like small molecules and ions such as carbon dioxide and oxygen, they can move across the plasma membrane by diffusion, which is a passive transport process. Okay, so because the membrane acts as a barrier for certain molecules and ions, so they can occur in different concentrations on the two sides of the membrane. Okay, so what is the difference between... Okay, so let's differentiate diffusion from osmosis. Okay, so when you say diffusion, the solute molecules are transferred through medium of space. So that is diffusion. And then osmosis, the solution is transferred from one region to another. Okay, so in diffusion, it does not occur through a membrane, while in osmosis, it occurs through a semi-permeable membrane. And then in diffusion also, it takes place from a region of high concentration to the region of low concentration. While on the other hand, osmosis takes place from a region of low concentration to the region of high concentration. So they are opposite. No? Okay, so transmembrane protein channels and transporters are another function of the cell membrane. Uh, this allows uh, to transport molecules, no? For example, sugar and amino acids, they are being transported into the cell, and there are also cases wherein there are certain substances that must also leave the cell. Okay, so uh, in transport protein uh, is another example of transmembrane protein channels and transporters. Um, porters. They are also called the permeases because they are very quite specific, and they're able to recognize and transport a limited variety of chemical substances, no? That is often limited to a single substance to enter the cell. Okay, so another example of transmembrane protein is the cell surface receptors. So this allows cell signaling molecules to communicate with other cells. Okay, so another function of the cell membrane is endocytosis. Okay, so this is the process by which the cells absorb molecules by engulfing them. So this is done by when the cell membrane creates a small deformation inward and called an invagination, in which the substance to be transported is captured. So the invagination is caused by proteins on the outside of the cell membrane, and then acting as receptors and clustering into depression, and then eventually this promotes the accumulation of more proteins and lipids on the cytosolic side of the membrane. Okay, so the deformation then pinches off from the membrane on the inside of the cell. So this creates a vesicle containing the captured substance. Actually, this endocytosis is of two class, no? We have the phagocytosis and penocytosis. So the phagocytosis is the one that internalize these solid particles, while uh, during this is also known as the cell eating, no? And then we also have another one, which is the penocytosis. Penocytosis is the one in which the membrane absorbs smaller ions, okay, and molecules. So this but this requires energy, okay, and thus this is a form of active transport. Okay, so we have the penocytosis and phagocytosis. So, penocytosis is a form of endocytosis wherein it takes fluids and solutes and other ions, while phagocytosis takes in larger substances, For example, bacteria. So this is also known as the cell eating, while pinocytosis is cell drinking. Okay, so the fourth function of the cell membrane is exocytosis. This is the opposite of the endocytosis. So this is brought into the cell by invagination and formation of a vesicle. And then the membrane of a vesicle can then be fused with the plasma membrane, extruding its content to the surrounding medium. So this is the process of exocytosis. So it is in various cells, it happens in various cells. It allows to remove the undigested residues of substances that's brought by endocytosis. So to secrete substances such as hormones and enzymes, and to transport a substance completely across a cellular barrier. Okay, so this process causes the unwanted substances or undigested waste containing food vacuoles or the secretory vesicle budded from Golgi apparatus. So it is first moved, by a cytoskeleton from the interior of the cell to the surface. Okay, so the biochemical events of the cell, such as the production and storage of high-energy compounds and the synthesis of proteins and lipids, serve one purpose, and this is to normalize, the activity of the neuronal membrane, to sustain the normal activity of the membrane.